A man and a clown are walking through a forest at night. The man turns to the clown and says, "The woods sure are creepy in the dark, aren't they?" The clown starts grinning and responds, "You think they're creepy. I'm the one who has to walk back out alone." What is it about clowns that frightens people so much? They certainly have been shown favorably in the media, with Stephen King's It, published in 1986, teaching a whole generation to be afraid of Pennywise the dancing clown, the Joker breaking onto the scene in Batman, issue number 1 in 1940, and almost not surviving his debut issue, all the way back to the opera Pagliacci from 1892 featuring a murderous merrymaker. But how accurate are these depictions of jesters as malevolent entities? Well, while the kind you can hire for birthdays are mostly harmless, if not my cup of tea, over the decades there have been reports of 14 fools, known as phantom clowns. Now, for a little background, the first recorded sighting of these phantom clowns occurred in Boston in 1981. In May of that year, there were sightings of individuals dressed as clowns driving vans around the local schools. Schools in the area told students to avoid talking to strangers, and I quote, "especially ones dressed as clowns." Words to live by. Then, just a few days later, reports of clowns behaving similarly came out of Charlestown, Canton, Randolph, and neighboring cities. Law enforcement stopped multiple vehicles with clowns inside, presumably an improbable number given the size of the vehicle, but no arrests were made. At the same time, in Rhode Island, similar reports began to come to the attention of youth counselors in the city. A week later, an even more aggressive encounter occurred in Kansas City, Kansas, with a clown wielding a sword chasing after local students. A week after that, another report came out of Kansas City, the part of Missouri, where a knife-wielding clown emerged from a yellow van to pursue two youths, with similar reports coming from 6 different schools in the area. Then, the reports stopped, as suddenly as they began. No explanation, no payoff, they just stopped. Of course, this didn't mean that they went away for good. The book Weird Massachusetts collected a story from a man named Brandon Paris, who reported seeing a man dressed like a clown sitting in a van, watching him and his brother in the early 90s. Another report came out of Madison, Wisconsin in 2000 of a man dressed as a clown standing near the edge of the woods and trying to lure children into the forest. There was another clown that went viral in 2013 after being spotted in Northampton, England, but this was ultimately revealed to just be the work of a harmless prankster who was initially looking to promote a student film before finding attention online. Of course, this phenomenon would return with a vengeance in 2016 with the clown craze that swept America that fall. The first reports that gained media attention came out of South Carolina in August, where men dressed as clowns were spotted near the woods or approaching children. Sightings occurred in Wisconsin and North Carolina, with one of the Wisconsin sightings being guerrilla marketing for a film similarly to what happened with the Northampton incident. Then, these reports exploded. Daily sightings across all 50 states and even other countries, including the UK, Canada, and Australia. Schools banned students dressing up as clowns for their Halloween parades, some stores stopped selling clown costumes altogether, party clowns reported receiving a drastic drop in bookings, and McDonald's even went as far as quietly stopping use of Ronald McDonald in their advertising. Clown sightings were everywhere, and no one really knew why. Somehow rumors began that this was all to culminate on Halloween night with these clowns attacking people, but this didn't come to pass. When November rolled around, the American media heavily covered a bunch of clowns one last time on election night, and then they vanished, just as suddenly as before. Now, while the 2016 clown wave was much larger in scale than the one that occurred in the 1980s, I think it was also very different in nature. Due to the internet and social media, many of these clowns were just people that were inspired to pull pranks based off of what they were seeing online, rather than people who were drinking whatever was in the water back in Massachusetts in the 80s. As far as what caused the initial phantom clown sightings in the 80s, or the first ones in 2016, no one really knows. Some have suggested that these clowns had the intent of taking kids, but despite what many would believe, abduction by strangers is actually exceedingly rare, and I can't imagine too many criminals would think of wearing an attention-grabbing clown costume as a smart idea. While there were arrests made during the 2016 clown scare, there weren't any after the previous sightings, and they seem to have left behind very little evidence, hence the name Phantom Clowns. And while this phenomenon could just be the work of pranksters, You have to wonder how so many sightings could occur in such a short period of time back in the 1980s. Do you think these things are just people in costumes, or are there something else entirely? Let me know in the comments section below.